Hello, good morning to a big concern out there. This is Dr. Games 101. I just want to apologize for the first 45 minutes of this recording of our podcast. And we had having some wind problems in the microphone and all. And after 40 minutes, it should be resumed. Okay, I appreciate you guys for listening within the 45-minute period. First 45 minutes, please thumbs up, subscribe, and share. Donate to our Patreon, Dr. Games 101, and enjoy the show, people. Have a nice day.
Okay, welcome everyone to episode number 98 of the Let's Discuss Gaming podcast. I am your host, Triple J. Joining me is my co-host, Dr. Games 101.
Hey, what's up, guys? Sorry we're late, man.
Yeah, blame Dr. Games 101. It was his fault.
Yes, I know. Shame me to that.
Yes, I'll smack your hands with the ruler later.
Yes.
But anyway, since we're both here, I say let's start. Let's do what we do every 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Ready for the first story?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. There is one thing I do want to bring up. I don't know if people are gonna see this. I gotta fix something in OBS. But anyway, be nice if I had the right thing highlighted. Obviously, some of the stories we cover are going to be a couple weeks old, or 3 weeks old, 4 weeks old. I bring that up because I uploaded the Escape from Tarkov, where we talked about the Unheard edition at $250. Not
right there.
and someone actually clicked on that YouTube link or that clip and said this story is 3 weeks old, and I replied back to him, yeah, this podcast was recorded almost 2 weeks ago and clips are uploaded throughout the 2 weeks to YouTube, but thanks for the view. He also disliked the video, but that's why I decided to start off with this little rant. Yeah, the stories are old, but the thing is, we also have small channels in the when you compare us to any other YouTuber or most YouTubers. So of course, if it gets uploaded, just try to remember, just because it just was uploaded to YouTube that day doesn't mean it was recorded that day.
Should we make a little notice to everyone on each and every video we upload that most of our videos are either dated or it goes back a few days. So.
Or I just should say from the Let's Discuss Gaming podcast in the comment section, maybe, or the video description.
Oh yeah, definitely. We do apologize to people that it's hard to keep track of news, obviously, but it's the fact that the time is so quick. Over the last several months, not years, the layoffs to the acquisitions and all. So it's hard to keep up with the news between Triple J and I. We appreciate your patience for help us understand that.
Right. So anyway, I felt that was worth bringing up for the first story tonight. PlayStation cancels Helldivers 2 mandatory PSN sign-in requirement following player uproar. Last week, we saw a new policy change for Helldivers 2 on PC as a PSN account became a mandatory requirement to sign into the game. This announcement didn't go over well with the Helldivers 2 player base, and after the game was bombarded with thousands of negative reviews, Sony announced they had reversed course on this decision, for now. Helldiver fans, we've heard your feedback on the Helldivers 2 account linking update. The May 6 update, which will have required Steam and PlayStation Network account linking for new players and for current players beginning May 30th, will not be moving forward, Sony wrote in a statement on its official account. We're still learning what is best for PC players, and your feedback has been invaluable. Thanks again for your continued support of Helldivers 2, and we'll keep you updated on future plans. Hint, we're just going to try this a different way on the next game. Sony's decision to enforce a PSN account requirement had major ramifications as Helldivers 2 was quickly delisted in 177 countries where PSN is not available. Arrowhead CEO Johan Heilstedt commented on the problem on Sunday, explaining that the studio was talking solutions with PlayStation behind the scenes. Originally, the PSN requirement was supposed to have been a part of the game when Helldivers 2 launched, but due to the overwhelming success the game had, it was postponed to a later date. It was my decision to disable account linking at launch so that players could play the game, Hillstead wrote on Twitter. I did not ensure players were aware of the requirement, and we didn't talk about it enough. We knew for about 6 months before launch that it would be mandatory for online PlayStation titles. With the controversy seemingly over, and we know something else happened since that, Helldivers 2 players can expect to play around with several new Arctic-themed weapons in the Polar Patriots Warbond this month. Meanwhile, Ghost of Tsushima, Director's Cut, will launch May 16th, and a PSN account will only be required for its Legends multiplayer mode, and the new PlayStation overlay, developer Sucker Punch has confirmed. Yeah, I think Ghost of Tsushima is also not being sold in countries that don't have PlayStation Network. So it's also locking people out of the single player experience. So I do want to get into some comments. Let me upvote. Dido Trust goes, proud of my fellow Steamers. We at least stand up against what is not right. Other games just whine and do nothing. Steam and PC players are forced not to be reckoned with. It's not 2010 anymore. And Malachi goes, good, an unnecessary requirement. And Jim G81 goes, this is one of the major things that caused me to switch to PC gaming in the first place. People should not have to play online with their friends, period. The server upkeep should come from the devs after charging 70 fucking quid for a game. Okay, so what do you think about this? This is a small victory for now, but like I said, it's the Ghost of Tsushima, that's not even being sold to anyone in countries that don't have PlayStation Network capabilities. So it's like a small victory, but they're still trying.
Yeah, it's like a slow transition from putting everything in on every console type of moment. Because obviously, not decades ago, but a couple of decades, not even ago, everything was exclusive to each platform. Everyone had their own system, their own network, their own form of perks of each game to play on each console. So it was all right at the time back then to do that stuff. But now for the last 5 years now, at least, we have crossplay in Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2019, and beyond. What I can see, at least my perspective, seems like a good thing at first to cross-play, cross-platform and stuff like that. All good, but then it starts to turn out this mesh like that with the PlayStation Network now, because obviously you had to play in order to play on the PC. At one point, Helldivers 2, you had to have the PSN account. I'm like, wait a second, that don't make any sense. And I get to explain this to the younger gamers, so I go on the network with, guys, you don't see what we see. It's to a point where they're trying to combine everything together to make sure it's like this one whole network of players, and that's about it. And we don't go accept these walls, you want to call them, not paywalls, but these platform walls. It's kind of like it doesn't seem compute at first. It's just, I don't like that. In order to play on a PC at that PSN network, what's the purpose of having a PC then? He's supposed to be this ultimate platform of proper channels, proper availability where you don't have to have all these accounts in order to play online. It's not even 15 years ago when I started playing. What was before they went everything with digital on Steam and all Steam powered. You go to Best Buy, you walk in there, Target, and they have a PC version, CD versions of the PC games, or DVD version of the games. And for $15-20, you can play along with no matter what. So you have the CD key. Now everybody's all behind these third-party EULA, they call them, what do you want to call them, the DRMs and stuff like that. And it's like it's redundant. So I guess for security reasons, for sake of make sure people are not stealing content and all that, piracy and all. But at the end of the day, those people that you want to block that feed, you want to call it from, they're not going to buy your game. So it doesn't make any sense. I'll have to say it's pointless right now to do that. But I see they draw back that PSN accounts fiasco. So for now.
Yeah, I hate to say this, it does sound like a conspiracy theory, but it's basically conditioning. They're trying to condition the next generation into thinking it's always been this way, so there'll be no uprising. There'll be no opposition
Or even competition.
or competition. That too. Although I think that's kind of dumb. We'll get to what Xbox is doing, because honestly, I don't know if the requirement to be a Microsoft employee means you got had a lobotomy after a certain amount of time. But we'll get into that later. But back to this. It's basically, you know, once people say it's always been this way, you got it. You know, it's not always been this way, because like we said, even in the PS2, GameCube, Xbox era, gaming online was niche at best. So they didn't have the ability to do these requirements, because you were only going to reach a niche amount of people, and those people were probably the ones who knew how to keep Dreamcast online once the servers provided by Sega went down. So it's kind of like you were going to reach that many people, and honestly, like I said, you know, it's just like, it's like example number 3,560 why I went back to retro. You know, I could play Final Fantasy 12, I could play Apocalypse, I could play Chrono Cross, I could play Max Payne 1 and 2. I could play all these games anytime I want, and I don't have to worry about this. So why would I put up with this? Not to mention after paying $70 for a game. You know, even though I have a job, I have a good job, but you know, because I work like 40 hours a week. I get $15 an hour, and I do make commission. But still, I mean, just dropping $70 on a game when I got bills like keeping the power on, keeping the cable on, you know, it's not like we have just hundreds of dollars to spend on these games. So I mean, and it's one thing developers don't get. It's like, because I mean, they keep doing this, it's not gonna work out for them, because they will lose the people who can afford to do this, which is the older crowd. The younger crowd really can't do this. They gotta make money however they can. Chores, maybe a summer job if they can find one, but they're not gonna be getting all that money from older people who do have that money to spend, if they have it to spend. So, you know, and if that happens, you know, I've heard talks about a video game crash. But the thing is, what will be different between 1983 and 2024, or whenever it happens, is it's not going to affect every video game developer. The indie developers, the small developers, they're going to be fine. It's going to be the big developers with executives thinking live service is the way, and just let's make people link their accounts, because then we can stroke our dick, and it makes us feel good about our ego, it's the people that are making bad decisions that are unnecessary.
Yeah.
That's who it's going to affect this time around, if there is one. Anything else, Ed, or ready to move on?
I just want to say though that especially the copies of this Aspercore for the past several months now, it's still getting worse and worse as time progresses. Overall, here in America, we can imagine how it is in other countries, but in the United States, people have to cut back on cost of money. They can't pay their pets anymore. They have to sell them, you know, to adoption or to the kennel. So, pet kills.
Yeah. So
it's getting that worse out there for us as people, particularly for the gamer, whether you're as old as 40 years old or as young as 20, 18 years old. It's these companies that are selling these games to us, so they have to make sure they're competent, we want money from the company. So you can't just be like, oh, we know what you want out of gaming people, so let us go to a screw yourself game. It doesn't work like that.
yeah, I mean, that worked so well for the base Xbox. That worked so well for the original Xbox One.
Yeah.
I mean, Xbox, like Microsoft backpedaled. So I've never seen a company backpedal so fast.
Yeah. Like 20 years ago, they counted all the good desires of from our game players. It's the female characters only sex
Yeah, that's another thing. It's not even developers. I don't want to blame them, but it's like the executives that are the people up top. Is like, we know what players want better than they do. Yeah, your financials don't really show that. We know what players want to play better than they do. By the way, this project lost us $200 million.
That's worse. It's like those Marvel movies been coming out for the last year. So Shazam, there's another one that killed Justice League.
Yes. So I mean, that's another thing. And like I said, we might talk about it later. I have to look up my sheet to see if I have an article that talks about it. But even if not, let's see, Suicide Squad debacle. Let's see, Square Enix. Okay, so I don't see it on my list of topics that we're going to talk about. But yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah, okay, so I don't have it, but I'll just throw it in here. Since it's an update, Ghost of Tsushima, it's just not being sold to any country that doesn't have a PlayStation Network. Which is ridiculous because there's a single-player game that people could play if they didn't want to play multiplayer, but now if you live in a country that doesn't have PSN Network supported, you just can't play this game, period.
Yeah, it's just tied in with the console itself, I guess.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a PSN Network to play the
No, you didn't. I mean, you did if you wanted to play online. But I mean, the PS3 had a built-in. Well, at least the PS3 I have has a built-in online, so you don't really need to connect an Ethernet cable or anything like that. It can connect to Wi-Fi just fine. But the thing is, and obviously you can't reach online functions anymore. But back then, when it was available, when those servers were up, you could if you wanted to. You could play Red Dead Redemption, the first one, and never touch the multiplayer mode. Which, honestly, if that's how you played Red Dead Redemption, you missed out. But it was up to you. Now they're trying to force it, and it's just not going to be as easy as game companies think it is. I don't have anything else to say. Ready to move on? Okay. Next. Resident Evil 9 out early next year according to latest leaks. The next entry in Capcom's horror franchise may be less than a year away. It won't be too long until fans of Capcom's survival horror franchise will be able to play the next entry in the franchise. That's if the latest rumors about the inevitable Resident Evil 9 are to be believed. The new update comes from Dusk Golem, a prominent horror game leaker who previously released details on Silent Hill: The Short Message before its surprise release. In a thread to X, formerly known as Twitter, Dusk Golem claims that Resident Evil 9 will be revealed relatively soon for a 2025 release window. If what I heard previously holds true, the release should be in January, writes the leaker. While still not confirmed, the timeline makes sense given Capcom's release cadence for RE games has remained pretty steady since Resident Evil 7 in 2017. Since then, the publisher has released 4 major titles, either new entries or remakes every other year, with the most recent being Resident Evil 4 remake last year. 2018, 2022, and 2024 are the only years Capcom hasn't released a mainline title. In the thread, Dusk Golem claims that Resident Evil 9 originally started development in 2018, and around the same time Village went into development. Both titles were potentially going to be Resident Evil 8, with Village eventually claiming the title, while Resident Evil 9 stayed in development. That would mean that Resident Evil 9 will have had the longest development period of any game in the franchise to date. According to Dusk Golem, Resident Evil 9 will also have the biggest budget spent on any game in the series. In previous leaks, Dusk Golem claimed that Resident Evil 9 could potentially be a new, more open-world title. As for what other story or mechanics the game will have in store, Dusk Golem says they will let Capcom do their thing and surprise people. If the leaks are to be believed, then it seems likely we'll need only wait until the summer to see just exactly what Resident Evil 9 has in store for us. So how do you feel about this?
I think the original guy, I mean, I don't mind the interest in original games mode, but as the last 5 years, as most say 7 years now, it's getting a bit excessive, or I can't the creativity overall. They turn this into like DLCs, episodes and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, in Prison Revelations 2, of course, it was all right to play the first episode or the first couple hours. I did years ago, but now it's like, can we please sum up the game now? Wrap this up, conclusive, like conclusion. That sounds redundant at first, but it's like, it's you can't keep this up for forever.
Well, who says he can't keep it going forever? Because keep in mind, Resident Evil first it started off with the Umbrella team, Chris, Jill, Wesker, and then you had the Darkside team, using the Wii games as teams here, which was like Leon's adventures, Claire's adventures, Ada's adventures. So it's kind of like, and then with Resident Evil 7 and 8, they kind of just went in a completely different direction. There was no, the characters from 7 and 8 were never in Resident Evil 6, which was kind of like the big climax for those characters, by the way. So it's kind of, it's kind, and also you gotta remember 7 and 8 aren't exactly like 6 or 5 before in terms, it was kind of like a play on words, like Biohazard was, what was it? Resident Evil, I think Biohazard, and then like you saw the Roman numeral 7 hidden in there come out, and then like for Village, the I and the L and the L turned into the Roman numeral 8. It's kind of like Resident Evil reinvented itself since Resident Evil 7, I have to say. And if they got more ideas, why not? And honestly, I do think an open world Resident Evil game could work. They did it with Dead Rising.
Yeah, you're right. There's a great extent Dead Rising did a good job on. I played a few hours of that too. Personally, myself, it's just that as a Resident Evil fan, since I was like 12, 11, 10 years old. I mean, now I'm 36, my 30s now. It's like, I feel so old now. It's been 25 years since the first Resident Evil came out. And I believe that it should have been conclusive as early as Resident Evil 6 when the world returns together. And it created Jake as the Whistle Son, the Mark, that was all right to have that. So I keep thinking about summing up in that game. They never really did too much if you just sum up in Resident Evil 6. So I guess you could say that, continue to 2 or 4 games. So that one turns into Stein, and it's like, I wish that in this open world it would have the last Resident Evil officially be ended, to wrap it up, because how many more times can you make the tail ends? The C virus from Resident Evil 6.
Well, they're not. That's the thing. Resident Evil 7 was a parasite mold. Resident Evil 8 was, that's the thing. It's, I would understand where you would come from if we were still dealing with the T virus or the C virus. But when we're moving more, because it was originally the T virus for like the first 3 games, then 4 and 5 were more about a parasite, a parasite basically controlling the citizens, which is what made them so hostile. And then 7 was about a mold that made the bakers act like the way they did, murderous. Resident Evil 8. I did watch that. I can't remember Ethan. I couldn't remember the character's name. So Resident Evil 8 was kind of different. It had nothing to do with the mold, but they basically were. It's kind of confusing because, like I said, I didn't play it, but I watched someone do a whole Let's Play through the entire game, even the DLC. But Resident Evil 8, I don't know what was creating those creatures, to be honest. Now that I think about it. Yeah, but the thing is, my point is that it's different, and you would say maybe they're leeching off the Resident Evil name, but the thing is, these games are so good, they probably wouldn't get they wouldn't get the recognition we would want them to get if they did change the name.
And Wesker died as early as Resident Evil 5, so it's kind of like, supposed to be a character. Like, he was the only one. He was the last of the experimenters behind the viruses.
Right.
Because Wesker, although he was the founder of Umbrella Corporation, he was the head honcho leader player in the creation of the viruses. So it was still Dr. Burke died, and Spencer died by Wesker's hand. It's kind of like they got to keep it going constantly, officially and gracefully. You don't want to force that story or stories, but make them just make it have
Yeah, so I'm just saying, Resident Evil 7 and I like I said, I saw the whole game straight through of actually 7 and 8, even DLC. They're pretty good. They're very good. So I just I'd like to see them try an open world. It'd be something new. It's something that hasn't been done many times by anyone. So and the thing is, it's Resident Evil 8 Village kind of did have, well, I wouldn't say an open world, but they had like a very little area that's much bigger than any other Resident Evil game. Except maybe 7, because 7 was like a whole farm. That was acres and acres of land. So.
Yeah, I did play Resident Evil 7 for the first hour or so. It was pretty challenging at first, like that game. Yeah. Dying over and over, shooting himself in the head, and coming out nowhere and trying to kill him, come after him. What the hell? Does he ever die? Like, I understand, he's invincible at one point. He shot himself in the head when you were in that car with him. It was kind of weird. I was like, hey, he survived that, man.
Well, he explains when because you enter a bathroom and as you're about to leave, he finds you, grabs you by the neck, pulls you back in, and as you look at him, you see his face regenerating. So he's like, hell of a gift, isn't it?
I remember that part, but okay.
Well, that wasn't in the first hour, so we probably didn't get that far.
Yeah, it was the part where I was in that second room after putting those coins, the first set of coins, whatever.
Right.
Coins, they came out of nowhere to get to that room after that.
Yeah, those coins actually end up being useful once you get into the RV on the because there's like an RV on the in the backyard, and like there you can use the coins to upgrade your health or upgrade your ammo capacity. So anyway, back to Resident Evil 9. Yeah, I'd love to see what they do with an open world.
Oh, yeah.
It can work with Dead Rising 3. I did have a problem with Dead Rising 3. I'm not gonna lie, but that was just because the characters and the story itself was just awful. Dead Rising. Yeah, it was all over the place, and just the characters were impossible to have that connection with. Because Frank West, lots of people. He's like the legend of Dead Rising. He's like the Link of what Link is to Zelda. Frank West is to Dead Rising. Chuck Green, people didn't take to him at first, but they did eventually warm up to him. And then they brought Frank West back as in Dead Rising 4, and that was the open world game. And I played Dead Rising 4 all the way through the main story, at least. I don't know if there was DLC. And like I said, that game was basically an open world because you could go almost anywhere you wanted, but you still had places you had to get to by a specific time. But instead of being confined to a shopping mall, you were like in this little town where you could fight optional bosses and stuff like that. So, yeah, like I said, that's why I think an open world Resident Evil game would be awesome. Anything else to add, or ready to move on? Okay, next. Xbox is shutting down 4 studios, including Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks. Microsoft is folding studios at Bethesda. Xbox is shutting down 4 of its studios, including Redfall developer Arcane Austin and Ghostwire Tokyo developer Tango Gamer. As shared by IGN, Xbox executive Matt Booty sent out a company-wide email detailing upcoming studio layoffs. These changes are not a reflection of the creativity and skill of the talented individuals at these teams or the risk they took to try new things, says Booty in the email. I acknowledge these changes are also disruptive to the various support teams across ZeniMax and Bethesda that bring Apple games to market. We are making these tough decisions to create capacity to increase investment in other parts of our portfolio and focus on our priority games. What games are those again, by the way? Arcane Austin will be closing, and Redfall's most recent update will be the last one ever for the game as its development comes to a close. Booty said that the servers will remain online, and Arcane Austin confirmed that those who purchase the premium editions of the game will be eligible to receive credit. Tango Gameworks is closing as well, which the studio has confirmed on Twitter. Hi-Fi Rush will still be available for purchase, and presumably its other titles, such as Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo, will still be available too. The 2 other studios impacted are Alpha Dog Games and Roundhouse Games. The former is a mobile game developer, most known for Mighty Doom, and the latter studio was founded in 2019 after the closure of Human Head Studios. Roundhouse will also merge with the ZeniMax Online Studios. Arcane Austin has been relatively silent since the release of Redfall. Last week marked the 1-year anniversary of Redfall's launch, and fans noticed that its promised DLC characters hadn't been released yet. The round of layoffs comes shortly after Xbox already laid off 1,900 jobs back in January. So let's go to the comments. Sean McTwo257 goes, can't say I'm shocked. Redfall is really bad. Phil said they will support it last year, and now this. Honestly, Phil just can't be trusted. He says it just for the media and has no moral code. He should get replaced with someone else. BDRTFM said in response, Money Pit. The idea that you think Spencer should be replaced after pulling Xbox out of the gutter is odd. Things change. Maybe the game is doing so badly it makes a little financial sense to keep supporting it if nobody is playing it. Companies tend to try and make money, not flush it away. And Ratman says in response to Sherman 2, I completely agree. I'm not qualified enough to look at the analytics for what Phil has accomplished thus far as CEO, but there are too many instances in which Phil has stated something in the media only to turn around and do something entirely different. I'm not going to link them. I understand the CEO of the 3rd largest gaming company in the world needs to embrace change, but often feels like he intentionally makes false, misleading statements. I am a fan of the direction Microsoft is going. I just wish they had a CEO that I could trust. Okay, so I do want to bring something up, but first I want to get your response to Microsoft shutting down these studios.
Yeah, it's surprising. Well, not surprising for certain people that Redfall games like Hi-Fi Rush. I mean, that was one of the best games of last year, and people still do it. Not the studio so much, but the Xbox as a whole. What a coincidence! I have been listening to a guy by the name of Rick Gaben before our podcast all the days ago, explaining that Phil Spencer, when
you would think if I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you done? Okay. Yeah, one thing you would have thought if they were going to spend billions of dollars or hundreds of billions of dollars on acquisitions for different studios, you thought there would have been a plan. I want to go back to the podcast that we had after it was announced that the sale of Activision Blizzard was going through with Microsoft. You know, everyone had approved it, even the UK. The US couldn't. People who were trying to stop it in the US weren't even going to get a second argument. So, you know, it was nothing. Just nothing was going to stop it. And we thought, man, what are all the games that we could see make a comeback that we never that we love? True Crime, Tony Hawk, just to name a couple. And this is what he does after he purchased it. I mean, I know you couldn't. You know, we're talking about like 40, 50 studios. Obviously, you couldn't bring games back from all of them. But just think, you know, what game has made such, like, from these studios, has made a profit, make a sequel, or at least try to think of a sequel, you know, and be like, okay, you know, the last game that made the best profit from these studios was True Crime. So, guys, True Crime, we already did New York and LA. What's the next biggest city that we can think of? You know, or hey, do a Tony Hawk. The reboot of 1 and 2 did really well. That collection that they put on different consoles. Do a Tony Hawk 6 or Tony Hawk subtitle here. That's what I would have done if I was Phil Spencer. I would have said, okay, you know, those properties you have, now they're ours. Which ones can we revive? I want sales figures. I want your properties. I want the game properties, by the way. I want sales figures, and I want to know the budget, and I want to see which games had the biggest return on their budget. And then the one that did have the biggest return, go back to that studio. Okay, what can we do to make a sequel or a remake if we can't make that's something that you could have done. And Phil Spencer did nothing, and no one else in power. I don't know if anyone else had the power to do that. No one else did nothing. It's like, what were you thinking? I mean, it's like buying. It's like if it's I don't want to make this example because I don't want to bring professional wrestling into it, but I guess I will. It's like the state of all elite wrestling right now. Tony Khan keeps purchasing wrestlers, and it's like, at most they have like 1 or 2 week interest, and then they just disappear, or their return or their first match won't happen for 8 more weeks. It's like where's the return on investment? You know, if I had the money to buy Activision Blizzard and I made everything, obviously, you know, Call of Duty was going to continue no matter what. But it's, you know, I would have went to every studio and said, okay, get me the IPs that you own, get me sales figures of the last game that involved those IPs, and get me the budget for those games. And then you could have gone to work saying, visiting those studios saying, or having web conferences with those studios saying, okay, you know, True Crime, people still love it. People still talk about it 20 years later. We did LA and New York. What location can we do next? Is it really that hard to think of?
They could have done Tokyo, but that was called Sleeping Dogs later on, so.
That was Sleeping Dogs. Yeah, that was going to be a True Crime game. But even then, Sleeping Dogs is what, 10 years old now?
Yeah. And it was pretty good at the beginning, too. I played
Yes.
that.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, so True Crime, okay, so Sleeping Dogs is True Crime Tokyo. But like I said, that's 10 years ago. Maybe it's time for another one. You know, True Crime Streets of Chicago, True Crime Streets of Texas, if you do like a heavy, you know, like Dallas or something, you know, some big city. True Crime, you know, and yeah, but the thing is, even the dumbest idea that we could think of, like True Crime Streets of Alaska or Antarctica, at least we're coming up with something. Yes, if someone did suggest True Crime Streets of Antarctica, they should be shown the door. Yes. But At least it's more what we just did in these last few minutes is more than what Phil Spencer did since this merger with Activision Blizzard went through, and now he's closing these studios. What was the point of buying them to begin with?
Well, I said eat too much and just didn't have enough to take as leftovers.
But I mean, it's kind of it. But I hate to do the. I hate to. I'll try to do a sports analogy. It's like when you give all the best players like these high priced contracts, and then you maybe use these players one game out of the season. It's like, yeah, it's like no, it's not just Tim Tebow and Tom Brady and I'm sorry, I just don't know football
Robert Griffin III, RG3.
Yeah, it's like you spent all the money to get these players. You were able to get all of these players, and we saw them maybe in one game each. That's not really a good use of the contract money. So, and that's what Phil Spencer did with these acquisitions. I'm almost sorry to say I wish the Activision Blizzard hadn't gone through at this point.
Yeah, it was a bad move in the long term. In the short term, obviously. Phil Spencer took a calculated risk, but he took way too much of a calculated risk, and he forgot to back himself up or get other people behind him to advise him on what to do with these companies that they're acquiring them over the last 5 years. Whether it's as small as Arcane Studios or as big as Activision Blizzard. And,
yeah, I mean, he could have at least had ordered these people who had the IPs still do a collection and find out, or do a collection of these games or release them digitally and find out which ones still are getting interest. If they release True Crime Streets of LA and New York, say for the Xbox on Xbox Live or Xbox Network as they call it, and lots of people were buying those games digitally, obviously that would meant there was interest. You could have gauged interest that way. But Phil Spencer just, I guess he was lighting cigars with hundreds. I don't know.
Yeah, imagine that.
Maybe. I mean, like you said, he spent all this money and there was no forward plan. What was the point? That's like a kid buying. That's like a kid who plays with the pro wrestler action figures, and he takes them out of the package and uses them once. It's like, but he keeps buying more and more, and it's like you played with that once. That was $18 well spent.
Yeah.
So that's just what I'm. It's just like what was the plan here, and I'm starting to think they just had no plan.
Yeah, it sucks that if I was in that company in the Xbox brand, I would definitely be a good advisor to Phil Spencer, and I would tell him to either hold off on Activision Blizzard and stick with the other smaller studios, and then build up revenue, build up profits, build up anything else in between, and then you go after Activision Blizzard. Let's say 7 years, 7 years from now, after that built up, make sure you have extra income, extra cash,
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, well, I think we're gonna get into what Xbox is doing, which is why I think they're handing out lobotomies at least to the top guys that work there. So maybe we should save that for that story.
Indeed, yeah, you're right.
Ready to move on?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Next. Okay. Oops. Wrong. Redfall won't get